Coming up, protests escalate in Philadelphia, Rowan is giving students free COVID testing, and Lil Wayne heads to the White House. All that and more in tonight's episode of RTN News. Hello and welcome to RTN News. I'm Joel Vasquez. A protest in West Philadelphia leaves multiple businesses destroyed. The protest ensued after two officers fatally shot 27-year-old Walter Wallace Jr. several times after refusing to put down a knife on Monday afternoon. The confrontation was recorded on a witness's cell phone. The victim's mother can be seen trying to restrain her son, but couldn't keep him from approaching the officers. According to the family, Wallace was suffering from a mental health crisis. Hours after the shooting, about 300 protesters flooded the streets of West Philadelphia. Officers armed with shields and batons in order to keep protesters under control. As the night went on, several businesses were looted and vandalized, and at least 12 officers were injured. Over 30 protesters were arrested for various charges, including a Temple University student who allegedly broke into a Foot Locker. The Philadelphia District Attorney's Office is investigating the shooting and subsequent violence. Governor Phil Murphy says the second wave of COVID-19 is hitting New Jersey right now. Murphy sat down with CNN Friday morning to explain what is causing the recent spike in cases. The governor warned that cold weather causes people to stay inside. However, this leads to people being exposed in private homes and at private gatherings. Murphy says, quote, "It's fatigue. They're getting sick and tired of having to deal with this, end quote. New Jersey reported 2,089 new COVID-19 cases, pushing the statewide total to 236,523. According to Murphy's tweet, the state hasn't seen daily case numbers this high since May. New Jersey's largest museum is staying closed until 2021. As COVID cases climb in Newark, the Newburgh Museum of Art has closed its doors for the rest of the year. Many art enthusiasts are being left disappointed after being told the museum would reopen multiple times. It's been almost a full year since patrons have been allowed to enter the building, according to the museum. According to the museum's statement, the decision is in the best interest of the safety of its members, visitors, staff, and the community. The museum's announcement mirrors the city's school district, which announced earlier this month that in-person classes would not begin until January. While its doors will be closed, the museum will continue to offer a variety of virtual art exhibits. When we come back, the National Guard stations in Philadelphia after days of protests. We'll be right back.
It's not just the presidential race that has Republicans nervous.
We turn this state around.
Senators in formerly safe states are struggling too. In Georgia, Republican David Perdue is running neck and neck with a 33-year-old Democrat, Jon Ossoff.
And you shouldn't do everything that your handlers in Washington tell you to, because you'll lose your soul along the way, Senator.
After that moment went viral last week, Perdue canceled their final debate, opting for a campaign rally with the president instead. In North Carolina, Republican Senator Thom Tillis has trailed his Democratic challenger, Cal Cunningham, for months in what is now the most expensive race in U.S. history. Cunningham admitted to an extramarital affair, and it still didn't change the polls.
And he's been untruthful and dishonorable.
Martha, come up just fast. Quick.
In Arizona, John McCain's former Senate seat could also go blue. Republican Senator Martha McSally being criticized by former astronaut Mark Kelly for the GOP's response to coronavirus.
Senator, you would understand this as a pilot. You guys did step one of the emergency procedure, and then you didn't do anything else. And that is a colossal failure.
And then there's Maine's Susan Collins, one of the Senate's most senior Republicans.
I don't regret any of those votes.
She's being hammered for siding with the president in a state he lost by 3 points.
And time and again making excuses for Trump's behavior.
Democratic voters have poured money, even into reach states like South Carolina.
They're killing us financially.
Now, Lindsey Graham's battle with Democrat Jamie Harrison is considered a toss-up in a state Graham won 6 years ago by 17 points.
And I wish the senator would take the urgency he has for the Supreme Court nomination to put that into actually doing a bill to address the needs of the folks in South Carolina.
Democrats are playing defense in a couple of spots. For instance, they're very worried about Senator Doug Jones of Alabama holding on to his seat. But in general, of the 13 states that we consider battlegrounds, 11 of those seats are currently held by Republicans. And even Senate Leader Mitch McConnell says his chances of retaining control of the Senate are 50-50 at best. Nancy Cordes, CBS News, New York.
Welcome back to RTN News. The Pennsylvania National Guard arrives in Philadelphia after days of unrest. The Guard surrounded the city and stood outside City Hall after being mobilized by Governor Tom Wolf. The order came Friday after days of protests and rioting over the death of Walter Wallace Jr. It's not yet sure how long the National Guard will be stationed in Philadelphia. However, sources say the governor may have ordered them to stand by for the election. Some saucy business. A New Jersey Shore pizza owner is sentenced to 15 months in federal prison for lying on his tax returns. Giuseppe Diarancho, owner of Sal's Pizzeria in Wildwood Crest, underreported the restaurant's taxable income by about $1.2 million. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office for New Jersey, the owner also avoided paying more than $425,000 in income taxes between 2012 to 2016. A federal court judge also ordered the 61-year-old to pay $507,000 to the IRS. According to the charging documents, Diarancho falsely claimed that the pizzeria never had an income over $300,000 during the 5-year period. In reality, the shop had an income of over $600,000 every year. What an imposter! A New Jersey man wins Big Brother 22 All-Stars and $500,000. Cody Calafiore from Howell, New Jersey, claimed victory on the reality competition last Wednesday night. The 23-year-old appeared on the show back in season 16, and he had come in second. During the finale, Calafiore won 2 out of the 3 rounds, which earned him $500,000. CBS has renewed the series for Big Brother 23 in 2021. Coming up, Isabella Casper tells us about Rowan's new and free COVID testing. We'll be right back.
The coronavirus crisis is intensifying. Infections, hospitalizations, and deaths up across the country.
Washington State has not given up in controlling this virus.
On Friday, for the first time since July, Washington State declared more than 1,000 cases.
The second wave that we've all been worried about is here.
Oregon Governor Kate Brown's state reported 600 daily cases for the first time on Friday. This week, a Minneapolis ER physician reminded his community how COVID patients can take weeks to recover.
One patient with COVID being admitted to the hospital, in a way, takes up as many places in the hospital as a few patients.
Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers didn't mince words on Friday.
If we want to do this right and stop it in its tracks, people have to wear a freaking mask.
North Dakota's daily positivity rate shot to 12.1%. Contact tracers there are struggling to keep up.
They're out in public and they're spreading it to others, and oftentimes unknowingly.
And new pain this week for Disney employees. Nearly 30,000 expected to get pink slips this weekend. The Dow had its worst week since March. Investors spooked by surging COVID infections and the threat of new restrictions.
Back to RTN News, now Isabella Casper with Rowan News.
Thank you, Joel. I'm Isabella Casper, and I will be bringing you Rowan's latest news. Free COVID testing for students and employees before Thanksgiving to continue efforts to help reduce the spread of COVID-19. Rowan University will offer free coronavirus testing to all students and employees before Thanksgiving Day. Saliva and nasal tests are scheduled to be available to all students starting the week of November 16th. Employees of Rowan will be able to request their tests from home. There will be more details about registering for free screening will be announced soon. Students who test positive for the virus will be offered the opportunity to isolate on campus in Triad Hall. There's a new app available called COVID Alert NJ to help us in our fight against COVID-19. Users download the app and can choose to receive exposure notifications. As you go about your day, the app will use Bluetooth to sense any close contacts. When the app senses a close contact, your phone will exchange a secure random code with the close contact's phone. Your location and your name will never be disclosed. The way it works is if you test positive for COVID-19, a public health representative will help you and ask you if you're willing to anonymously notify your close contacts by uploading your app's close contact code. Each day, the app will compare your list of close contact codes to the list of codes associated with positive COVID-19 app users. If there is a match, you will receive an exposure alert along with the appropriate next steps. Together, we will beat COVID-19. Rowan University's Department of Public Safety is scheduled for an on-site assessment today by the Commission of Accreditation for Law Enforcement. CALEA's accreditation program requires agencies to comply with the state-of-the-art standards in 4 basic areas: policy and procedures, administrations and operations, and support services. As part of the on-site assessment, agency employees and members of the community were invited to offer comments at a public information session at 3:30 p.m. The session was conducted virtually via Zoom, and in 2011, Rowan Public Safety became the first university in New Jersey to obtain prestigious CALEA accreditation. This is considered the gold standard of public safety professional excellence. I'm Isabella Casper, and that's all for Rowan's latest news. Back to you, Joel.
Thank you, Isabella. After the break, Renee Waters with National News.
To thank the staffers who helped run his re-election campaign. Without citing evidence, he said allowing states to continue counting votes past Election Day is dangerous.
You have to have a date, and the date happens to be November 3rd, and we should be entitled to know who won on November 3rd.
Overnight, the president returned to the White House after holding 5 rallies in 4 battleground states. He's promised the crowds from his rallies will show up to the polls on Election Day like a red wave.
Good to be home!
Vice President Biden spent the morning in Scranton, Pennsylvania, to visit his childhood home with his 2 granddaughters. Inside, he signed a wall with the words, "From this house to the White House, with the grace of God." Last night, he made a final pitch to voters in the battleground state.
The vast majority of Americans are done with the chaos, the corruption, the failure.
From Connecticut to California, polls are now open across the country.
I think everybody needs to get out and vote, make it happen.
This is a very important election. It's going to change the history of our country.
Here in Alexandria, Virginia, and in polling locations across the country, election officials are working to prioritize the health and safety of voters with coronavirus protocols, including signage encouraging social distancing, mask wearing, and plexiglass partitions.
It's unclear if a winner will be declared tonight, as some states could take days to count all the ballots. Skyler Henry, CBS News, Alexandria, Virginia.
Welcome back to RTN News. Now we go to Renee Waters with National News.
Thanks, Joel. The city of Philadelphia bracing for another possible night of unrest. 2 police officers shot and killed a man allegedly with a knife. His family says he suffers from bipolar disorder and was going through a mental crisis. A video leak showing the incident. Walter Wallace Jr. was shown approaching police after being repeatedly asked to put the knife down. Authorities fire off 14 times. Violence continues in West Philadelphia as protesters march and set police cars on fire, with over 30 officers injured. A citywide curfew has now been in place Friday, beginning at 9. Body camera footage and officers' names are to be released November 9th. Rapper Lil Wayne meets with President Donald J. Trump to discuss plans for Black Americans. Lil Wayne praises Trump via Twitter, sharing a photo of the 2 men giving a thumbs up. Wayne says what he's done so far with his criminal reform will guarantee the community real ownership. Trump's Platinum Plan will gear towards Black voters and includes a number of broad initiatives, like building neighborhoods with the highest policy standards, expanding school choice, and improving economic opportunity for Black Americans. Chief Juanita Holmes will be the new chief of patrol in the department, being the first female to hold this position. Holmes is the highest-ranking African-American woman in NYPD history and highest-ranking uniformed woman ever in the department, with over 30 years of experience. She will oversee majority of NYPD's uniformed officers on patrol and 8 borough commands. That divides into 77 police persistence commissions. Dermot Shea says she understands the importance of neighborhood policing and keeping the people safe. Back to the desk.
Thanks, Renee. Don't go anywhere. Weather girl Ariana has this week's forecast.
On the eve of Election Day, it's not just the presidential race that has Republicans nervous.
We turn this state around.
Senators in formerly safe states are struggling too. In Georgia, Republican David Perdue is running neck and neck with a 33-year-old Democrat, John Ossoff.
And you shouldn't do everything that your handlers in Washington tell you to, because you'll lose your soul along the way, Senator.
After that moment went viral last week, Perdue canceled their final debate, opting for a campaign rally with the president instead. In North Carolina, Republican Senator Tom Tillis has trailed his Democratic challenger, Cal Cunningham, for months in what is now the most expensive race in U.S. history. Cunningham admitted to an extramarital affair, and it still didn't change the polls.
And he's been untruthful and dishonorable.
Martha, come up just fast. Quick.
In Arizona, John McCain's former Senate seat could also go blue. Republican Senator Martha McSally being criticized by former astronaut Mark Kelly for the GOP's response to coronavirus.
Senator, you would understand this as a pilot. You guys did step one of the emergency procedure, and then you didn't do anything else. And that is a colossal failure.
And then there's Maine's Susan Collins, one of the Senate's most senior Republicans.
I don't regret any of those votes.
She's being hammered for siding with the president in a state he lost by 3 points.
And time and again making excuses for Trump's behavior.
Democratic voters have poured money, even into reach states like South Carolina.
They're killing us financially.
Now, Lindsey Graham's battle with Democrat Jamie Harrison is considered a toss-up in a state Graham won 6 years ago by 17 points.
And I wish the senator would take the urgency he has for the Supreme Court nomination to put that into actually doing a bill to address the needs of the folks in South Carolina.
Democrats are playing defense in a couple of spots. For instance, they're very worried about Senator Doug Jones of Alabama holding on to his seat. But in general, of the 13 states that we consider battlegrounds, 11 of those seats are currently held by Republicans. And even Senate leader Mitch McConnell says his chances of retaining control of the Senate are 50-50 at best. Nancy Cordes, CBS News, New York.
Now we go to Ariana with the weather.
My advice, carry a jacket with you if you're planning on being out at night, as most of the week will be nice during the day with very cold evenings. Today is the coldest day of the week at 52 degrees with an even colder evening of 38. Tomorrow will be partly cloudy with a high of 55 and a low of 37. The sun comes out on Thursday to warm things up to 65 with a low of 42. Clouds return Friday, bringing the temperature down to 61 with a low of 37. Saturday will be 57 with a low of 39, and Sunday will be 62 with a low of 42. The sun comes out Monday, but the high will only go up to 60 with a low of 42.
That's all for this week's episode of RTN News. Stay tuned for next week's episode. I'm Joel Vasquez. Have a good night.